Hello and welcome to What's the Story? We're an inquisitive bunch of hosts from the What's the Story team on a mission to uncover stories about faith and courage from everyday people. And to help us do just that, we get the privilege to chat with amazing guests and delve into their faith journey, the hurdles they've overcome, and the life lessons they have learned along the way. Now, if you enjoy our podcast, don't forget to subscribe and sign up for our newsletter on our website, which is what'sthestorypodcast.com. It's your direct line to the latest episodes and detailed show notes, and they all get delivered straight to your inbox. And the best part, it's absolutely free. What's the Story is brought to you by Crowd Church. We understand that stepping into a traditional church might not be everybody's cup of tea. And that's where Crowd Church steps in, providing a digital sanctuary, a safe space to explore the Christian faith, where you can engage in meaningful conversations rather than just simply spectating. So whether you are new to the Christian faith or are in search of a new church family, we invite you to visit us at www.crowd.church. And if you've got any questions, just drop us an email at hello@crowd.church. We're here to help and would genuinely love to connect with you. And now, without further ado, let's meet your host and our very special guest for today.
Hello and welcome to What's the Story? My name is Sarah Fainin, and beside me is the lovely Anne Prime, who you, dear listener, are going to have the privilege of getting to know today. Welcome to What's the Story, Anne. It's great to have you. How are you today?
Thank you, Sarah. It's great to be here, and I'm doing great. Thank you.
So Anne and I know each other from years ago, all the way back in Pakistan. I believe, and you said I was in grade 10 at the time when you first went out to Pakistan?
I think so. Yeah.
So, I want to know what took you to Pakistan. I want to know how you became a Christian, because I don't know much about your story of your Christian faith. So tell us.
Well, I was born in Alabama in the USA, and I was born into a Christian family. I can remember, some of my earliest memories were going to church with my grandparents and my parents. And, but honestly, it wasn't until I was 17 that I was working at a summer camp. And I really had an experience of understanding the grace of Christ in a way I'd never seen it before, and seeing it lived out in other people's lives, seeing that faith in Christ was a personal thing. I had always believed in God. I can remember even as a child, just conversations with God. And always knowing he was near and cared about me. But it wasn't until I feel like, I guess this is the way of saying it, that I met Jesus face to face that summer. And that was what I see really as kind of stepping out in faith as a follower of Christ, even though I'd always been a believer. So
Making that personal decision to follow him.
Yeah.
And this was a Christian camp from church?
I was introduced to it through the church I was at. I was in a Reformed Presbyterian church in Alabama, and we had a conference center in North Carolina, which I had worked at for a couple of summers. But this particular summer, I worked at a camp there called Camp Joy, which was a camp for people with physical and intellectual disabilities. So.
Great. That's great. So then so that you were 17 when you came to know the Lord as your personal Savior.
Yes.
So what happened after that?
Oh, well, after that summer, actually, I made a bold promise to Christ. I'll go home to my little small town and my high school, and I'm going to be a witness. I'm going to share my faith. And so I went back home from that amazing summer, and immediately was given opportunities to do that, and was pretty nervous and scared about it. But at the same time, there was this boldness that new faith can bring. And I remember I spent a weekend with a friend, a girl who was about to go away for school, to a boarding school, and she and I spent the weekend at the lake with her parents. They had a home there. We were out on the river one day, or the lake, and we witnessed a tragic drowning. And I can remember that night back at her house, just sitting together and crying and asking all the questions, and even though both of us had grown up in church, we had never had a conversation about God, about life after death, about Jesus, and but that night we did, and I was able to share with her, and she prayed and asked God to save her, and to give her new life in Christ, and that was an incredible experience for me. I never really shared my faith in Jesus with someone in that way, and never been a part of that kind of experience. And it was powerful. And the next week when school started, I actually had an opportunity. Another friend who had been elected, we had the Student Government Association at our school, and a friend of mine had been elected as the chaplain for the coming year, our senior year. And she also moved away. And so that role of chaplain in our Student Government Association had opened up. And a teacher encouraged me to run. Well, I did, but no one else ran it was just me. But they still had me get up and give a speech. And I just knew that speech was my opportunity to share what God had done in my life. And I did, in fear and trepidation. But it's amazing sort of to look back on that, because before that, it was a small school, kindergarten through 12th grade, only about maybe 400 people total. But after that experience of being vulnerable and sharing my story, that opened up opportunities to know people in my school that I'd never known before. To have conversations, to feel not only like seen and known, but to see and know other people in a new way. It was incredible. It was, and my senior year was just a complete turnaround from everything I had lived before. It was amazing.
That is really inspiring. And I love how you made such a bold promise to the Lord and how he honored that and gave you those spaces to be able to share about him and your story with others, and the fact that you could lead your friend to Jesus. It's incredible.
It was quite incredible.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
So then, what happened after high school? Where did you go?
After high school, I went to school in South Carolina, a small university that was college that was part of the Reformed Presbyterian Church, Erskine College, in a small town called Due West, South Carolina. And I spent my 4 years there, majored in Christian education and minored in special education. And it was, again, another experience of just God's grace in so many ways. Relationships built there, the education I got there, and the way that experience led to the next thing, So.
Yeah. And so that was, I'm guessing, 4-year program?
It was a 4-year program, 4-year college.
Yeah. Great. And then, so where did the Lord take you after that?
So during my time at Erskine, I had the opportunity to go on several short-term mission trips to Mexico, too, actually. And through that, made relationships with people at an organization called World Witness, which again was part of the Reformed Presbyterian Church. And when I graduated from Erskine, my first year, I worked at a small home for girls as a teacher. And while I was working there, I was approached by the director of World Witness, who I had gone on these trips with, about an opportunity in Pakistan. And they were wanting to start a program there for students who had learning differences. And I guess you'd say recruited me. They knew that I had an interest in special education and offered to train me to do this educational therapy. And I knew that my desire, I didn't know if this was what, God was leading me to, so to speak, but I knew my deep desire was to step out of my comfort and do something different. I foreign missions or being, in a different environment really appealed to me. And so I said yes. And I don't know that my reasons for saying yes were noble in any way. They were more like adventure driven, I'm pretty sure at the time. But I said yes. And that led to being trained to do this educational therapy with the National Institute for Learning Disabilities, it was called at the time. And to do that, I went to Virginia for a year and interned at a school there. And I can remember a very, this was kind of a pivotal moment of me noticing that this was God moving me out into a new place. I was a part of a group at the church I was going to, a group of singles who we went on a retreat. And one of the questions that weekend to the group was, if God asked you to do anything, one thing that you would say, what is the one thing that if God asked you to do it, you would say no? And he went around the whole circle, and most everyone's answer was something like leave home, like move away from where my family lives, leave Virginia, something of that kind. And when it got to me, I just, at that time in my life, the one thing that if God wanted me to do it, I'd have a hard time saying yes to, was moving back to the small town I grew up in. So it was like what I was feeling was completely opposite to all these other young people my age. And so I thought, well, maybe there is something to, maybe this isn't just me seeking adventure. I think maybe this is really God, leading me in this direction.
That desire in your heart.
Yeah.
And actually what you said towards the beginning when you were talking about the camp you were at, and you made this bold promise that you wanted to go and witness to others about the Lord. And he's like, listening to you talk, I can see that the Lord opening up doors for you. My question I wanted to ask, so when you were in university, when you were doing your Christian education course and I missed, what was the other half of that? It was a Christian ed and...
Christian education and then special education.
Special education, that's right. Yeah. And so in that time, I know you went to do some missions trips in Mexico, but were you still thinking about what your future was going to look like, whether it was going to be more about witnessing, or was it just, tell me a bit more about that.
So during my time at Erskine, every summer I went back to that same camp. I worked at that camp for probably 8 years, every summer. At some point in my time at Erskine, I realized I really wanted to study education and to work with people who have different learning styles and needs. But Erskine did not have a major in that at the time. They were not offering that degree. And, and I didn't want to or feel the need to move on to another school. So that's why I chose to minor in it. But it was always an interest of mine, certainly. Just, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Thank you. So you were then, you went to Virginia
Yes.
to get more training.
Yes.
And then did you go to Pakistan right away after that, or was there more that the Lord took you through before he planted you in Pakistan?
It was pretty much directly from there. When I guess it was the summer of '92, I did some orientation for working, in a boarding school, in an MK school. And then I did the training for working with the Discovery program. And then I had the internship in Virginia. And that was kind of while I was waiting for my visa to come through. And I finished teaching in Virginia early summer of '93 and went to Pakistan in August. Or I think it was August of '93.
93.
Yeah.
That's
So that was, it was wonderful.
And it changed your life, didn't it?
It did in so many ways. Yeah.
All right. Tell us about that.
Well, I went to Pakistan in the summer of '93 help, not to start it, but to help start the Discovery program, which had already been started there, and got to be a part of that. I believe I had 6 students, and my first year, that's what I did. I spent time, building relationships with the other staff and my students, and teaching and getting involved on campus, and it was an amazing community to be a part of. I've never experienced anything like it and never have since. Just incredible. Made up of people from all over the world, and just a beautiful, beautiful picture of what the bride of Christ is. My second year there, I was asked to also be a boarding parent for 7th grade girls. And so I moved into one of the dorms and had my 7th grade girls, and was teaching still. And it was an amazing year. In between all that, the summer, I guess it was my second year there, I met Mike Prime. Mike his parents worked at the school, and he had actually graduated from MCS. Years later, when he would tell this story that we met at MCS, he always liked to leave out the part that that he graduated before I even came. He liked to make it sound a little bit scandalous, but but he had graduated and gone back to Canada, and he was out visiting his parents and working in Pakistan for the summer, and had come up to the school, and we met one day. I was leaving the campus with another teacher, and she had a flat tire. So we were about to get all the paraphernalia out to change her tire.
Yeah.
And Mike and a friend of his came walking up, and I said, "Oh, we'll change that tire for you." And I remember he said, walked over to me and said, "I'm Mike Prime, by the way." And that was it.
That's lovely. I remember you being around, and I remember Mike being around, having come back as well. I didn't know all of this was going on until it happened.
Good.
Yeah. But yeah, I want to echo what you said about MCS. It really was a very special place.
Yeah.
And I haven't experienced anything like it ever since as well. I would have to agree with you. Yeah. So yeah, you and Mike then.
Yes, we met that summer, so the summer of '94. We spent very little time together. We would run into each other around campus and just chat for a minute. And uh, somewhere toward the end of the summer, he was back on campus, and he asked me, "Have you ever been to visit in a village?" And I had been when I had visited friends in the South. I'd gone to some villages, but I'd never actually been to one in Murray, like to anyone's home. And Mike had relationships with a lot of the men who worked on campus, the maintenance workers and guys, families. He would go to their homes, and so he invited me to go. And so one evening, Mike and two other friends of his and I went hike down the mountain onto the mountainside to go to someone's home, and we had tea, which then turned into dinner, and it was an amazing, yes, as it does, a wonderful evening. And it actually ended up being the first day of the monsoon. And so the rain started, and we knew we needed to leave, and we ended up hiking back up the mountain in the pouring rain. And it was, it was an amazing experience. So when we got back to campus, we actually drove into Murray and went to where his parents were staying at the time and visited with them, and then ended up visiting with each other till like 3 a.m, just getting to know each other. And then the next day he went back to Canada and back to school. Yeah, the very next day. So I was like, oh, that was nice. And I didn't know. I thought he was a great person, but I didn't know if I'd ever, see him again. A month later, however, I had a postcard in the mail from Mike. And on it, he had put his return address, which you don't usually put those on postcards,
Yeah.
But he had. And so I wrote him back, and we ended up writing letters, and that was, email was a new thing at the time. But we didn't personally have email. The school had it, and probably his school had it. But so we wrote letters, and every 2 weeks I'd get a letter and send one back.
I love it.
We did that for 8 months, and then he came back to Pakistan, and that was the summer of '95, and it was coming up to the end of my 2-year commitment at MCS. And that summer we got engaged.
So he came back for you that second time?
No. He came back with two friends.
Okay.
They came to work in the South with some missionaries there. He had come back to do that every year after he graduated from MCS. He came back and did that. So no, not just for me. Although, if I may, I'll tell this little story of our engagement. It's funny, and I don't think many people know it. But when he came back, poor college student that he was, he wanted to bring me some kind of little gift, but he didn't really have money, and he didn't know what it would bring. And he was visiting with his brother before the trip, and they went hiking. And as they're hiking along the trail, he kicked something on the trail and looked down, and there was something shiny. So he bent down and picked it up, and it was this little dainty, pretty little gold ring. And he thought, well, I'll just give her that.
The sign.
Well, I don't know that he really thought about it that way at the time, but he cleaned it up and he brought it out. And so in the evenings, we would visit in the staff lounge. The girls would go to bed, and I'd go down to the staff lounge, and we'd sit and visit. And as often happened in Pakistan, the power went out one night while we're sitting there visiting. We're in the pitch dark. We had no candles or anything. And the night before, we had talked about, our understanding of dating and what do we see that as at our ages or whatever. And, to me, at the time, I thought, well, you date in order to know if this is a person that you should marry. It's a time of discerning. And we came to that agreement and decided, okay, well, we're dating. And so this is the next night. He's just given me the little ring. He said, I wanted to give you this gift, and told me the story, and we thought it was funny. And and the power goes out, and he said, so you know what we talked about last night? Yes. What do you think? I'm sorry. What do you think? And I knew what he meant,
Mm.
but sitting there in the dark, I'm like, no, he's going to need to really ask this question.
More effort, please.
Yeah. And so I said, what do you mean? And he finally said, will you marry me? And I was shocked that it came so soon,
Yeah.
but I also knew, you know,
Mm.
and so I said yes. And he reached over, of course, we're in the dark. He reached over and took my hand,
Mm.
and he took it and put it on his mouth so I could feel how big he was smiling because we couldn't see each other. And I just thought
Oh, that's
we
so
always,
sweet.
yeah, that was
That's
a
really sweet.
fun story that we really enjoy. So
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It is a fun story.
you're welcome.
So you got engaged,
Yes.
and then how long were you engaged? And were you in Pakistan for that engagement time? Or did you move back? What happened?
For some of it,
Mm.
my time was up in August, and I believe, we did announce our engagement while we were there, so we got
Mm.
to enjoy that time with friends and family there. One of the other staff members at the school made my wedding dress, which was incredible. We were thrown a big Mindy party by friends there. It was beautiful.
I bet.
And then I went back to Alabama where my family was, and Mike went back to British Columbia where he was in school.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 5 months from when we came back to when we got married in December of 95.
Oh, amazing. And you got married in Alabama.
In Alabama.
Yeah.
In Alabama. And friends from Pakistan and from Canada and, of course, from the States were there for our wedding. And it was an incredible, beautiful, wonderful time.
So, and I know that you had I know you had wonderful years with Mike, but tell us more about your marriage and about Mike falling ill.
So we married in 95, and we spent our first year in British Columbia. And for various reasons, we chose to move to the States. And we ended up in Columbia, South Carolina. Mike was going to finish school at a Bible college here, Columbia International University. And he also worked full-time at the university, so that took some years. But we really settled into life here. And our daughter, Eden, was born in Columbia. And we lived here. I say here because I'm back here. We lived here for about 9 years before moving to Alabama, which, when I made that, I left Alabama at 18, my hometown, to go to college. And it was 18 years later that we moved back there. And it was the right time. It was the right time for lots of reasons. We lived there for 12 years. And it's interesting, sort of one of the big lessons that I have learned over time, or am learning, I should say. I don't know that I'll ever completely learn it, but I'm learning, is that our journey of following Jesus is a lot less about those big adventures that I know I was seeking when I was young. And it's more about right now, this moment today, and how I'm living it. And I think our years in Alabama were the beginning of that lesson in that school. Yeah.
So, if you don't mind, tell me, I want to uncover a bit more about why you say that. What happened that made you feel like you learned that lesson?
Or started learning it, yeah. I believe, so the choice when we started to build a family, and when our daughter was born, we made the decision that I wanted to stay at home. And that meant lifestyle choices that were limiting in some ways. financially, really the only way. Things that we had to choose to give up. But they were certainly worth it. We never felt that they weren't. But that honestly was the beginning of learning that lesson of, it's being totally present in the moment for the people that you're in life with is more important than anything else. There are things that we can aspire to. There are things that can draw our attention and our mind away from the present moment. And we can and I say we, but I know that this is true of me, that I can put my energies into things I might want in the future or things I might regret from the past. But all of that pulls me away from being truly, really present right here in the future. And this past 3 years has been a big lesson in that. But as I approach the anniversary of Mike's death, I've been doing a lot of looking back over the years and lessons learned. And that's one of the biggest ones I see. It's not just been in these last 3 years I've been learning that. It's been a long time. Maybe because I'm having a hard time learning it.
So what happened with Mike?
So the summer of 2019, our daughter was she was getting ready to start her senior year of college. And she was in school down in Florida and had decided to take the summer and go to school in the UK. So she was there for the summer, and her hope was to do some traveling in Europe after her time in school was done. And she wanted to do that with friends. That didn't work out, so she invited her dad to come. And I was going to be working at a camp in Alabama that summer, that same week that she wanted to travel. So she and Mike got to do this trip together. And so the week he was gone, I was gone to camp, and we both had very, very different experiences, but we came home with a very similar sort of realization, I guess you'd say. I had spent this week in a camp called Hope Heals Camp in North Alabama. And if you don't know about the organization called Hope Heals, please look it up. It's an amazing organization. Do a beautiful family camp for people living with disability. And my takeaway from that whole week of camp was a need to recalibrate, a need to get back to the essentials in life. So when Mike came home and we talked about our experiences, that's where we were both coming to. The next day we went back to our normal jobs and our normal life, but with a completely new perspective. And the same day he got a call from his boss offering him a promotion that would move us to Georgia. And this was not something we were expecting. It was a real surprise, but when we talked about it and prayed about it, we realized that that was part of what we were being kind of prepared for. And it was something we needed to say yes to. And so we did. And within a month, we were moving to Georgia, about, I think, a 5-hour drive from where my family was in Alabama. And it was a process. Mike moved first, and it took me about a month to pack things up and finish my job and move. But one experience that happened in the process of the moving, looking back on it, we know had a pretty big impact on the next months, the next year. Mike was putting a new roof on our house in Alabama before we moved. He and some friends were working on it on Labor Day, on, what was that? The Labor Day of 2019. And he had a fall. He fell off the roof. And he walked away that day, nothing broken, nothing major, but had a lot of pain. And the next couple of weeks, had a lot of pain and was going to a chiropractor and dealing with it. And it got better over the months, but it never completely went away, that pain. And So fast forward then to November. My mother, who had not been real well for a long time, she had chronic pulmonary disease. She passed away in late November of 2019, not long after our move. And I got to be with my family and with her in those days. But coming back from that into, the Christmas season and all of that, having just moved to a new place, was a challenging time, but it was also a time that really brought us together as a family. Mike and I, and Eden coming home to be with us on that Christmas was good. And so the spring of 2020, as everyone will remember, brought COVID. It was March of 2020 when we got the first kind of, in South Georgia anyway, the first kind of inkling that something big was going on. And we got a call, I think it was March 11th, that Eden, our daughter, her school was going to close down for a couple of weeks. They were sending everybody either home, or at least they had to stay in their dorms and do school virtually. And she decided to come home. So she came for 2 weeks that turned into the rest of the semester. And about 2 weeks after she came home, Mike started having some unusual symptoms that at first he thought were related to the back pain, because from the fall he had always had some kind of nagging pain in sort of his mid-back and even in his diaphragm area. But in these weeks, he started having other symptoms that we realized that this is not just pain from your fall. And started trying to get him in to see a doctor, which proved to be very difficult at the beginning of COVID. Doctors weren't really wanting to take on new patients. Offices weren't just open for walk-ins, So it took us several weeks to even get an appointment. But once we did, things moved very quickly. And in April, he was diagnosed with third stage esophageal cancer, which was a shock, to say the least. But his father had had the same cancer several years before, and they'd found it early, and they had done a surgery that was very challenging and difficult and hard to recover from, but was successful. And so we had hope. We thought that, Dad's been through this, and we'll be all right. But that was, mid-April. By June, we knew that Mike's had advanced to fourth stage. And the surgery wasn't even an option when it was at third stage. But he started treatments, chemo and radiation, and we started the long process and journey of illness.
Wow. And so much in such a short span of time, from losing your mom to, even the move away from home, and then losing your mom and grieving and being part of that. And then with everything that then happened with Mike. I'm so sorry.
Thank you, Sarah. It was, it was an unexpected thing. Looking back, I think I said earlier, coming up on the anniversary of his passing, I've spent a lot of time looking back through things I wrote during that time, through particularly the Psalms. During those months, Mike and I read through the Psalms together. Every day we were reading, and so in the margins of my Bible, there are things that I wrote during those days, reflections on the Psalms that we were reading. And one thing that stands out as I look at it was the incredible courage that he faced all of that with. From the day that he found out, his courage at stepping into that was inspiring, I guess. his courage, his faith. The first the first day we talked to the oncologist, he said, Doc, and I'm watching this, I'm seeing this, 45-year-old man who's healthy, looks healthy, strong, fit, healthy, being told that he has cancer, being told, what this is what we recommend for your treatment and all this, and just seeing what he's about to have to face. And he said to the doctor, I'm okay either way. So I want to live. I want to be here. I want to, be with my family. I want to do life. And he wasn't crying like I am. But I know that if I die, I'm okay. Because I know I'm gonna be with Jesus. And I'm okay with that. I'm not just okay with that. That's good. And to hear him say that, because it was true and it was what he was really feeling and experiencing, was
Wow. What a great testament to the Lord's goodness to him and faithfulness to him, for him to have such a strong relationship to be able to say that.
well, instead of looking back, the wonderful thing is that it's one thing to say that when you're sitting in that chair and you feel good and, you feel courage and you feel boldness and you think, I'm going to hold on to this and believe it. But it's quite another to still be able to say that when you're in pain or you're laying in a hospital bed, as he had to do a couple of times through those months. But to still be able to say that in those times, that was what was really a testament.
That's incredible. What was grief like for you in those very early days? And I guess in some sense you were probably starting the process of grieving while he was still with you.
Yeah, I think
Right?
that that's true. And I don't think that at the time I thought of it as grief. But yeah, I know that was part of the process. Early on, after Mike was diagnosed, we talked about it, and we wanted to be very careful, if we could, to be mindful of how we approached the whole thing. Because we certainly wanted healing, and we asked God for healing, and we sought conventional treatments, and we pursued alternative things to help. And we prayed for healing, and we asked others to pray. But we also didn't want to be in denial. And we wanted to actually welcome death, if that was what
the Lord had.
was the next part of his journey, our journey. And that was all part of that not fearing it. If we believe what we say we believe, that after this life is true, real life, eternally with God, then why should we fear this? The threshold, the having to die, is a very hard thing. It's something that we both did fear in a way. And looking back on those moments, it was really, really hard. But knowing and believing that it's a threshold to something that is unimaginably wonderful. We just didn't want to be in a place where either of us would resent that. Or, I don't know how to put it really, but we just didn't want to deny the possibility. And so, because of that, I think, yes, there was a lot of grieving going on in those 6 months. But there was also a lot of celebrating and a lot of trying to be very present, as I said. That was something that I believe that balance between seeking and desiring healing, but yet welcoming whatever God had, helped us to actually simply live each day, what was given to us that day, be totally present with each other, And honestly, it's going to be strange to say this, and I know that I can't really explain it except that it's a mystery. But there was something about those 6 months, some of the most beautiful and unified days of our lives together. And I think it all comes back to that being fully present.
And what a gift from the Lord.
Yes.
You said when you came back from your week in camp and Mike returned from his time with Eden in Europe, you both came away with the same message or felt like you needed to recalibrate. And it sounds like the Lord gave you that time and that sense that this is what you needed, and it set you up for what was coming unbeknownst to you. And from the way you're talking, the way you talk about being present and living each day in the moment, and you talked about reflecting on scripture together with Mike, and just in everything you've talked about, it felt like you held each other, you held Mike in an open hand before the Lord. And whether he takes him or whether he lets him stay, you were okay with that. And that's hard. That's a really hard place to be, but how so powerful.
Yeah, it's not a place I ever stayed consistently, but that was definitely the.
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that. So what does, I don't think we ever stop grieving. I don't think that's a thing. So how are you navigating that at the moment? Like where are you up to in that grief journey?
Well, it's interesting. That's a good question. And I think in a way that's what I've been thinking about this past, this October. It's 3 years. And so, and this time I've been kind of looking back and taking account, I guess, of that journey of grief and where I am. And I don't know, for me, sort of, I know there are a lot of different ways people look at grief, but I feel like for me, it's been almost, and I've probably heard this somewhere else, this is not a new concept, but for me, it's almost been like a spiral of this, the different stages of grief, but at a different level each time.
Yeah.
And so going through those different stages, and different levels of understanding, but also with a different reliance on God, a different perspective on life, from a different vantage point, looking back at Mike's death. For me now, so this year, well, it's been a progression. In the first months for me, I spent a lot of time in Psalm 23 and just kind of walking through what that psalm is and means. And I spent a lot of hours walking, I mean, literally walking, taking walks in private places where I could pray and just talk to God out loud, and with my dogs looking at me like I was crazy because I'm talking to no one. But I was talking to God. And those moments, just that physical exercise, being out in nature and feeling my feet hit the ground and breathing deep, and sometimes crying and sometimes ending up laying on the ground and just letting those emotions of grief that needed to be expressed come out, I stayed there for a long time. And I remember in those days Psalm 23, where it says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. I don't know, was given, I saw this image in my mind. I had always heard that and thought of it as a person who is like the shadow of the possibility of their own death is around them and they're afraid. But at this time I saw, no. That shadow that's cast over me right now is Mike's death. And a shadow happens when something is between you and the light source. And God is that light source. And there are days that I feel like he's nowhere near. But this image that I saw was like, it was like I was stepping outside the picture and I could see in. Here I am walking in this valley, and it's Mike's death that's casting the shadow. But there is the light. God is still there. I have nothing to fear. This hurts. It's hard. I don't really want to be here. But God is still here, there. It's him that's casting the shadow. And I'll see the light again. And that knowledge, that image really, like pulled me through those months in a way. Another thing sort of that spoke to both Mike and I when he was sick and then to me after was music. Mike played guitar and we sang a lot in our home, lots of worship songs. In the months that he was sick, he didn't have the energy or the voice to sing much. And so we listened to a lot. And a song we heard early on in his treatment time and we listened to daily was the song Always Good by Andrew Peterson as an anthem, a daily reminder to us that even though our circumstances are not good, God is good. God is good. And Mike, when he would lead worship at our church, he always had this a thing that he would say that he heard somewhere and loved. So he would say it, God is good. And the congregation says back, all the time. And you say all the time, God is good. And so hearing that song, we immediately both thought of that little refrain that he loved to say. And it's true.
It is.
It's true.
It sure is.
Yeah.
I love hearing how your relationship with the Lord is just from when you became a Christian or decided to follow him at the age of 17. You just can see the Lord's hand in your life, and your faith seems to have grown stronger and stronger by every experience that the Lord gave you. And it's wonderful to see that even in something as tragic as having to lose Mike, that you've been able to hold on to the hope and the goodness of Jesus.
I think, I think it's more him holding on to me. There, two things in what you say remind me of two other spots I was reading through in my journals. One is the fact that most growth in my life, and I look back at, has happened in the dark.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that's probably just a true thing naturally. Most, when you think of a seed, so much of the necessary growth happens when it's under the ground. Think of a child.
Yeah.
So much very important growth happens in the dark of the womb. And I know that's been true in my own life. And one of the biggest lessons or reminders through this time has been how God holds us. Isaiah, let's see, what is it? Isaiah, I had it open earlier today. In Isaiah 41, verse 10 and verse 14, I just love. And they say, "Fear not, for I'm with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." And then it's actually 13. For I, the Lord your God, hold your right hand. It is I who say to you, fear not. I am the one who helps you. And I have written in my journal, like my margin of my Bible, yeah, April 23rd of 22, I wrote this. And this is, again, I was given this image as I read those verses. So the one says, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. So I picture God or Jesus holding around me like we would do if we were helping someone up from a fall. We'd reach around them with our right hand and pull up.
Yeah.
And so holding me that way in his arm. But then in 13 it says, I hold your right hand, which means that he's reaching across with his left hand to hold my right hand. And so the image is like being completely encircled in the arms of God. And that's how I picture what you said earlier. You said that I think you said you've held on to. He's held on to me. And elsewhere in the Psalms, there again and again, I kept seeing this where David says, and the psalmist says, I cling to you. That there's this active part that we play in this holding that God is. But that activity is nothing but just clinging.
Yeah.
And that's what these days have been. Are.
Yeah. What do you think this whole experience and this process has taught you about yourself? I know you've learned a lot about God. That's very evident in how you've been speaking, but what has it taught you about yourself, do you think?
That I have deep, deep need to know that I won't be abandoned. I think that there is definitely something in, losing the person that you've, pledged to love till death do you part. And, that love doesn't die. To feel that, I guess there's something I'm learning about my own personality in a way that I have this underlying fear that I think. And so to have that happen, this person that was so close to me in my life, not there anymore. I don't know exactly how to verbalize now what I'm trying to say, but seeing that is an underlying fear that I probably have had all my life, and yet knowing that my Savior Christ will never abandon. He, Jesus is the outpouring of God's mercy and love and grace into life and into this humanity that we live in. And even though I, in the core of who I am, have this fear of being alone, I know that I'm never alone, that he is always with me, and I have nothing to fear. So I guess in a way, sort of learning that about myself is very humbling. Yet I think humility is our only starting place with God. If I'm not starting from that place, then I have this misguided idea that my efforts are what keep me close to God. And it's just not true.
Yeah.
It's him. It's God.
That is so true. There's so much wisdom in those words, Anne. Yeah. You might have already answered this in so many ways, but if you had one message or one key learning, what would you say that is?
That's a good question. One, gosh, I think I'm still learning so much. I think maybe that what I just said might be it.
If I was to rephrase it, maybe, if you were to go back to, I can't remember, was it the summer? Was it the summer when you were at camp and Mike was away and you came back before it all kind of kicked off in some
Yeah.
sense with your mom and then, well, Mike and your mom, Mike's fall. What would you tell yourself? Like if you were to go back, if you could
Yeah.
prepare yourself in some way, what would you tell yourself?
That's a good question. Good way to put it. Well, going back to that word that was so dominant in my thoughts in those days, recalibrate. I think I would tell myself to take that very seriously. And to me, over time, in looking at that word, what I came to is that really means going back to what is essential in life. What is essential in my faith is what's essential in life. And to recalibrate always to me now means getting back to the heart of God, coming back to his presence, and actually recognizing that I'm never out of God's presence. God is always present in me, with me, in you, with you. I'm the one who sometimes steps away. And that recalibrating is that always coming back to God. And I suppose we could talk about concrete ways that we can do that in our daily lives. But for me personally, that is, images are very powerful for me. That's just, I think in pictures, I think. And for me, imagining on those walks that I told you I took, imagining that Jesus is actually right there walking with me is powerful for me. Knowing that at any moment or time, I don't have to go to a special place to pray, and I don't have to do any particular ritual to talk to God. God is always with me. And for me, it is in the person of Jesus that I feel just the closest communion with him. Knowing that I need to recalibrate myself on a moment by moment basis and remind myself. I was thinking of it this way the other day. When you're in a conversation with someone and you want to, and you're really talking and connecting, it's usually when you're looking in one another's eyes. I realize that there are times when God is drawing me near and gazing at me, and I'm not looking. I'm looking at other things.
Yeah.
My attention is on anything else but his gaze is just drawing me in. And when I stop and actually really look full on his face, it changes everything. And I can do that in any and every moment of the day.
Thank you, Anne. That's so powerful. I feel like listening to you, I'm able to walk away with so many golden nuggets. Like, recalibrate. You're so right. And even you said something at the beginning too about being present in the moment, and like how often we, pine for something that was or might be in the future instead of, like you say, being in the moment right where the Lord has placed us in the present. It's so important. It's so important. And the other thing, like you were talking about the Lord's goodness, and from that, looking at, or just looking at, thinking about how the Lord has been so good, it's hard not to be grateful for the things that He's given us and blessed us with. And that heart of thankfulness to the Lord, it takes you to a different place. It takes you outside of yourself and allows the Lord to minister to you.
Yes.
And I can see that. I can hear that in your words. And I'm just so thankful that you shared your story with us. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome, Sada. Thank you for inviting me too.
Oh, it's our pleasure to have you. It really is. And before you go, I'm really conscious of the time. Is there any way that if one of our listeners wanted to reach out to you and maybe carry on the conversation with you in some sense, if they're in the same boat or have just gleaned a lot from what you've said and would like to talk to you more, is there a way that they could reach you?
Absolutely. I guess email would probably be
Okay.
a good way.
Okay.
That
Yeah,
would be
so
great.
I have that. I can put that in the show notes along with Hope Heals.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I'll add that.
Yeah.
Well, that's it from us today. Thank you again, Anne, for being here. It's just been a wonderful conversation to hear what's on your heart. It's just the Lord has been so good.
Thank you, Sadaf. And it's been so good to be with you again after so many years. I really
Yes,
love
absolutely.
seeing
So
you.
fun to reconnect, right? So that's it from me and Anne, and we'll see you soon in the next episode. Bye for now.
And just like that, we have reached the end of another fascinating conversation. Now remember to check out Crowd Church at www.crowd.church, even if you might not see the point of church. You see, we are a digital church on a quest to discover how Jesus can help us live a more meaningful life. We are a community, a space to explore the Christian faith, and a place where you can contribute and grow. And you are welcome at Crowd Church. Don't forget to subscribe to the What's the Story podcast on your favorite podcast app, because we've got a treasure trove of inspiring stories coming your way, and we would basically hate for you to miss any of them. And just in case no one has told you yet today, remember, you are awesome. Yes, you are. Created awesome. It's just a burden you have to bear. What's the Story is a production of Crowd Church. Our fantastic team, including Anna Kettle, Sadaf Bainon, and me, Matt Edmondson, and Tanya Hutzelak, work behind the scenes tirelessly to bring you all these fabulous stories. Our theme song is a creative work of Josh Edmondson. And if you're interested in the transcript or show notes, head over to our website, what'sthestorypodcast.com. And whilst you're there, sign up for our free weekly newsletter to get all of this goodness delivered straight to your inbox. So that's it from all of us this week here at What's the Story. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a fantastic week wherever you are in the world. We'll catch you next time.